Star Wars only. I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
Thrawn Alliances is a sequel to Timothy Zahn's Thrawn book from 2015, and it's got kind of two separate plots that happen. It has Thrawn and Vader who team up with each other, and they're going to hunt down a disturbance in the Force in the unknown regions that the Emperor has sensed. And then you have Thrawn and Anakin, when this part kind of surprised me, is that they are sent. Well, Anakin's gonna go find Padme on this unknown region kind of planet, or it's closely unknown regions, and Thrawn happens to be there as well, doing like infiltration mission for the Chiss or something like that. I think he's getting like a shield generator or whatnot. So, the last book was really good. I really liked the original Thrawn book that came out in 2015, and I also like the Thrawn trilogy, you know, Heirs of the Empire and Dark Forces Rising. Those are the two I've read so far, and they're amazing. They really are just fantastic books and keep me intrigued the entire time. The first Thrawn book, you know, Thrawn moved up through the ranks, same with the governor from Lothal, whatever her name is, and it's interesting. I really like it, and it ends on the ending of, you know, Thrawn sends his friend, it's his translator, out to the unknown regions, to Thrawn's homeworld with the Chiss, and they're getting prepared for something. And that's really cool to me. I was like, oh, what's this happening? What's something happening in the unknown regions? I really want to know what's going to happen in the unknown regions. Then this book came out, and I was like, alright, this is going to answer my questions. It did none of that. I have a lot of problems with this book. First things first, it's not that entertaining at all. Like, at all. There's nothing that... What captured my attention was unknown regions. I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to go explore some stuff. They really didn't. They stayed on maybe about 2 planets, and they traveled around a little bit. And, you know, the climax of the story normally is at the end, where it's really interesting, there's a lot of tension, you're like, oh, what's going to happen next? That never happened. There wasn't much of a climax to the story for either of the, you know, two, you know, timelines that you follow. And it really is all over the place, because you have a chapter on Thrawn and Vader, then a chapter on Thrawn and Anakin, and a chapter on Thrawn and Anakin, and then out of nowhere, a chapter on Padme. And I'm like, why? This book's about Thrawn and Vader. Why am I getting a chapter on Padme? And there's probably about 5 chapters out of all of them for Padme alone, and it's just kind of annoying. And there's not a lot of character development in this book at all. One thing I was hoping for with Thrawn and Anakin is to see Thrawn not as we know him now. You know, a lot of people love Thrawn but hate Rey, and in my opinion, they're almost kind of the same characters in the sense that they're really powerful with almost no explanation. You know, Rey kind of comes out of nowhere. Thrawn, you know, comes from the Chiss and whatnot. That's cool. But Thrawn is older. He has this backstory that you don't know. And so you still don't know much about it. But when he meets Anakin and Padme and he works with them, he's still invincible and can do anything. He can predict anything. And he predicts Order 66 and whatnot and all this stuff that's happening. And you're like, dude, can you screw up like one time? Just once. The only time you think of him screwing up is Darth Vader making fun of him for what happened when he couldn't capture the rebels because of the Bendu. And so that's the only flaw that he really has. And it's like, okay, but that's, you know, in the modern day. That's Thrawn in the Empire. What happens to Thrawn when he's younger? Is he ever going to mess up? And it seems not. He doesn't have any character development. Not like in the first book where Thrawn kind of slowly and surely makes a friend. You know, he becomes better in the Imperial Legion and whatnot. In this book, he gets no development. Darth Vader gets no development. Anakin gets no development. There's only one character I would argue that gets development, and that is Padme. In a book about Thrawn, Padme gets character development. And I have a huge problem with that. And her main character development is her kind of coming to terms with, no matter what she says, her side, the Republic, is still doing some pretty bad stuff. You know, they're hurting, you know, people on different planets, like in the unknown regions that they're going to. And there's no real excuse for it, and she tries to tell herself it's the cost of war, but even she knows that's kind of a lie. And so that's the only problem I have with this book, is there's, well, not the only, but that's one of the problems I have with this book. One of the biggest ones is no character development. And so I just kind of found that annoying and bland. And overall, you know, in the end, the disturbance in the Force, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, is there's some Chiss children that can use the Force, and the Chiss use them to navigate through hyperspace, and I think it's the Dark Chi or whatever, I don't know. There's, Darce, no, Darce is Jujitsu, Darce Choke, Dark Chi, I don't know. And so, there's these children, and they're captured by these unknown region species that the Thrawn people, the Chiss people of Thrawn species, are at war with, and that's kind of it. I mean, Anakin and Thrawn take down a separatist factory with Padme, and that's cool, but not really anything new. It's kind of, it's like a Clone Wars episode. It just all felt off. There's not a lot of chemistry between Vader and Thrawn. There was, bitterness between them, and it was okay, but it mainly was, Vader threatening him and Thrawn constantly being like, "Yes, my lord," and whatnot. Kind of being not like his bitch, but kind of just like that really smart kid that in class that the bully would try to beat up, but the kid would talk himself out of it. And so it just was kind of weird. The best chemistry I saw was with Thrawn and Padme, and how weirdly they could team up together, and just kind of the odd chemistry of, Padme's very passionate and emotional. Thrawn's very calm and collective, and with Anakin, he'd be like, "Oh, I see what Thrawn's doing now. Oh, I'm catching on a little bit." Padme, not really so much. There's some parts where Vader recalls his time as a Jedi and everything, and Thrawn kind of teases him about being Anakin, but never in the way where he's like an ass, like, "I know you're Anakin Skywalker." He's like, "Oh, I remember a time when I was working with Anakin," or something like that, and Vader's like, "Anakin's dead, don't worry about that," or anything. So this whole book was a bunch of nothing. I mean, it really was nothing. At the end of the first book, it was like, okay, we know how Thrawn became the Imperial, or the Grand Admiral, and we know how the Governor became the Governor of Lothal, and that's cool. And then we know there's going to be something that happens really epic in the Unknown Regions. This book, on the other hand, I mean, it's stuff that could be summarized in 1 or 2 sentences of Thrawn's people have these children that use the Force, and there's these evil other Unknown Region people that, sorry, that's my timer, that are also trying to get the Chiss children. I mean, that's not much, and it just, for me, it was a very boring book, and it was very disappointing because I expect a lot from Timothy Zahn, especially for making the best new canon book, which is the original Thrawn book. That was very intriguing, very cool. There was someone who actually challenged Thrawn, and there was some rebel dude or something, and Thrawn even asked him, "Hey, would you like to join me and go help my people, the Chiss, out in the Unknown Regions instead of fighting for the rebels, and, I'm the Empire?" So this guy challenged Thrawn and made Thrawn kind of think and be smart and everything. It was cool. It was like, oh, there's someone that's a little equal to Thrawn. There's nobody like that in this book at all. And so it's just, like I said, it's a whole bunch of nothing. It really was just a big disappointment for me. And so I don't recommend this book at all. If you want to read it, I mean, of course, by all means, it's your right, free country to do it. It's a waste of money, in my opinion. In the end, nothing happens. It's very bland. It's very boring. There's no character development except for on Padme, and no one challenges Thrawn. It's just a very boring book. I mean, when the climax, there wasn't much of a climax, but when the story ended and the book ended, I was like, that's it? I mean, really, that's it? There's nothing interesting that happened. I mean, they even spent some chapters on the people on the Chimera, Thrawn's people, and the First Legion, Darth Vader's people, and them bickering at each other, them not really having a great chemistry and kind of getting mad at each other and having, like, oh, my rank outranks yours and whatnot, all that kind of just small petty soldier stuff. They have that going on. It's like, okay, I guess. It's all over the place where you forget what timeline you're in, you forget who's who, and so I can't give this book a great score. I give it a 6 out of 10. Actually, I give it a 5 out of 10. It has its moments where there's some good chemistry between Thrawn and Anakin and Thrawn and Padme. After that, though, it's just kind of, it's really not that good of a book, and I can't really recommend anyone picking it up and reading it unless you're the biggest diehard Star Wars fan ever. It really is just a boring book to me. So, I don't know. Comment your thoughts below. Have you seen it? Have you read it? Will you watch it? I mean, not watch it. Read it. You can listen to it on Audible as well. That's one of the things I like doing nowadays because I don't have a lot of time to read books anymore because, I got college. I also read my own books. I read a lot of books on economics, financial accounting kind of stuff, and politics and history and all that kind of stuff. So it's really hard for me to sit down and read a book nowadays, but I did that for this book, and I didn't have a good time. I mean, I really did not enjoy this book at all, and I don't recommend it. But hey, comment your thoughts below. Have you read it? Do you like it? Are you going to skip it, or are you going to buy it? This was an honest review of Thrawn Alliances. Check it out if you want. I recommend skipping it, but that's just me. I'm Star Wars Only. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see y'all next time. May the Force be with you. Always.